It is now 6:33. We're going to call the Lawndale City Council meeting to order. I'm going to ask the city clerk to give us the roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Osborne.
Here.
Councilmember Suarez.
Here.
Councilmember Kearney.
Here.
Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Mayor Pullen Miles.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have our Pledge of Allegiance and our word of inspiration. I'm going to ask Councilmember Pat Kearney to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and Pastor George Maglini to give us a word of inspiration.
Please stand, place your right hand over your heart, and repeat along with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, staff. Folks, would you pray with me? Father God, we do want to acknowledge you this evening, and we do thank you for your presence. And your word tells us that in your presence is fullness of joy. And we thank you for your joy over this city. We thank you for your watchful eye. We would ask your blessing and protection upon all the citizens of Lawndale. We thank you for the children here. Pray that you bless and protect them, whether born or unborn. We thank you for all the families. We thank you for our elderly. Ask that you would watch over them, Lord, and provide for them and protect them. And we thank you, Father, for those that you have raised up to protect us and serve us. We ask that you would protect them as they do. Lord, we thank you for this meeting tonight. We just ask that you would dispense your wisdom upon your servants. And as your word promises that a leader's heart is in your hands and you direct it like a water course wherever you will. So we trust that tonight. We trust in you. We commit this time to you. I personally pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor McElhaney, for those words of inspiration. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Okay. First order of business is going to be our public safety report. We're going to have our captain to give us a public safety report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. How are you doing this evening? I'm here tonight to present the public safety report from May 20th to June 2nd. On May 20th at noontime, deputies Paul Saldana and Sean Groves responded to the Smart and Final regarding a transient who had just punched a store employee, then fled the location. Both deputies found the suspect across the street inside the L supermarket. Both deputies had prior confrontations with the suspect before. At this point, the suspect was yelling obscenities at customers. As the deputies contacted him trying to calm him down, the suspect lunged at Deputy Saldana, attempting to grab his weapon. A fight ensued. The suspect kept failing to comply with deputies' commands to stop fighting. Deputies were finally able to gain control and handcuff the suspect without further incident. Deputy Saldana injured his right hand, and Deputy Groves received a laceration to his head. The suspect was placed under arrest for assault on a peace officer with injuries, resisting executive officers, and battery. He was subsequently transported to South LA Sheriff's Station. Also later that day, at about 1:30 p.m., Deputy Dean Mendoza responded to the CVS pharmacy located at Manhattan Beach and Hawthorne Boulevard regarding a business disturbance. As he entered the location, Deputy Mendoza saw two females matching the description given in the call. They were carrying tote bags obtained from the store, which appeared to be full of merchandise. Apparently, the same two females had stolen merchandise before, failing to pay numerous times in the past. Both females, once the deputies contacted them, both females ignored lawful commands from Deputy Mendoza to stop and continued to walk away from the location. A short while later, Deputy Mendoza was able to detain both females. Both females spontaneously stated they had previously planned to steal makeup before entering the location. Due to this, both females were placed under arrest for burglary and transported to South Los Angeles Station. Last, we have on May 21st at 7 p.m., Deputy Raymond Johnson responded to Larry Rudolph Park regarding a male possibly under the influence of alcohol while demanding money from patrons in the park. After contacting the suspect kept ranting and raving incoherently. He became very belligerent, then ran towards Deputy Johnson, challenging him to a fight. Deputy Johnson sprayed the suspect with OC spray. OC spray had little effect. The suspect then ran up to another patron and challenged him to a fight. At this point, Deputy Johnson tased the suspect, causing the suspect to fall on the ground, eliminating the threat toward the park patron. As Deputy Johnson attempted to handcuff the suspect again failed to comply with the deputy's commands to stop fighting. A short time later, Deputy Johnson was able to handcuff the suspect without further incident. Deputy Johnson received cuts and bruises to both his hands. The suspect was placed under arrest for resisting arrest, battery, and under the influence of a controlled substance. He was also transported and booked at South Los Angeles Station. This concludes my report, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you for that report. Are there any questions of the captain?
Just,
report?
Got one?
Yeah,
I just-
let's have Mr. Reed.
No questions, but thank the officers. I know it's been a rough couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing. Give our best to the deputies to get it. I mean, there's a lot of crazy people loose on the street right now. You see the increase in transients and everything, so hopefully they stay safe.
Thank you for that.
You want to introduce your new member of your team?
I sure do.
Yeah, I think he was getting there.
It's a pleasure for me to introduce. We have a new area lieutenant here at Lawndale. He was actually chosen by you, the city council. So I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Christopher Leo. He comes highly recommended. He's actually worked at South LA for about the last 2 years. And he's going to be an outstanding job, not only for South LA Station, but actually obviously for the city of Lawndale. And I'm glad you guys chose him.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to be your service area lieutenant. I'm honored and looking forward to enhancing the law enforcement in Lawndale. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome, Lieutenant. Okay, let's move our agenda. Okay, next item on our agenda is oral communications. Oral communications is where you have the opportunity to speak to the Lawndale City Council on items that are not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak to the Lawndale City Council on items that are not on the agenda, we ask that you line up by the flag when it becomes your turn. When you come to the podium, if you will start with your name, we would appreciate that. At about 2 minutes, the amber light will come on to give you the signal to wrap things up. Thank you.
Pam London, 171st Lawndale. I would like to also say, my favorite deputy is back from medical leave, so yay. Officer Bercher, excuse me. Shit, now I can't think of his name. Sorry. Anyway, I wanted to let you know that I dropped off 1,000 rolls of poopy bags for the health and pet safety fair today, so that is over there with Mr. Reyes's department. And yeah, Mayor, I hope you got my little card that I want to speak in a little bit. And listening to the report, I'd like to say that it sounds like they showed great restraint with every incident that they reported on, because I would have tased him again, maybe shot him, I don't know, but certainly they showed great restraint, so I think this is a waste.
Yes, sir.
Gary White, Lawndale. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I made a little list. I normally don't do it, and I may get a little emotional, but I need your help. You know, since October, these large trucks, I've talked to you about it before, have been going around the neighborhood and running into things. Today, a large truck parked along my wall turned his tire into my brick, knocked off some bricks. I showed the guy, I watched him do it, I showed the guy the bricks, and he just drove away. I had to take a picture from his door so I could find out who it was. So I called the company. Anyhow, I want to make a long story short. I went up to try to get the information, and vehicle insurance and such, and the guy cussed at me and continued to cuss at me, and I just turned around and said, okay, I'll call the sheriff. I did call the sheriff. The sheriff came out and made the guy give me the information. To me, driving away like that was a hit and run. And the least he should have got was, I thought he should have had a ticket. I don't know how far they have to drive, because he went all the way around the block. I don't know how far they have to drive or refuse to give you the information to get a ticket. Get some kind of citation. These guys have been going around on these big trucks just acting like bumper cars. This is the third thing that happened to me, and there was another situation on the corner of my block where they took a guy's bumper completely off. And I believe I know who did it, but I wasn't watching that day. It was another large truck delivering roofing materials. In all these situations that I have been victimized, nobody got a ticket except for the very first time when it was a very large vehicle that was on the street parked. The city came out and gave them a citation for parking that vehicle on the street without a permit. Let me try to finish this thing up real quick. But like I said, today they hit my wall. Nobody gets a ticket. I thought in the vehicle code, you must be in control of the vehicle at all times.
That's time.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I'm on 162nd Street. The short story is that I inherited a home and I'm having a hard time getting a building permit, or I guess we'll call it a mechanical permit. My father built this home in 1971 and lived there ever since. It was my childhood home. I took care of him for the last 6 years. He died last year. I inherited the home. My driver's license has a P.O. box on it and has for the last 30 years. Ghetto air conditioning comes out and tells me that the heater is leaking carbon monoxide. So I had the furnace changed out. I can't get a permit for it. So last thing they asked me for was a utility bill in my name, and here it is. Now they want 12 months of this utility bill. So anything happens in the next 12 months, the next phone calls I make are to my insurance company to be sure to come after the city of Lawndale if anything happens to me, and my attorney. I really need your help in getting this done. I didn't know I had to be a member of some secret club to get a permit. And what about all the things that my dad did without a permit that I now want to get permitted? So I'm different. I invite you in my home with your red pen and tell me, this is good, this is not good, and let's get everything permitted and safe. I thought that's what it was about. It was keeping people safe.
Okay, we'll provide some comments after everyone had the opportunity to speak. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. So my name is Jessica Romero, and I'm the librarian over at the Lawndale Library. And I just wanted to share with you guys that June 1st, our summer reading program for adults has started, and that is only online. So if any adult that wants to sign up, they can sign up online. Our kids' summer reading program starts on June 12th at 3 o'clock, and we'll be having a magician come out at 3:30. At 3:30, and we'll be having a magician come out. And so we invite kids to come out and their parents to come out so they can sign up for the summer discovery program. And what that is they essentially get an incentive to read over the summer, because we know, as we all know, during the summer, a lot of children lose what they learned over the school year. So we want to make sure that they're continuing to read over the summer, and we are providing them little incentives like books and little knickknacks and things like that, as well as entertainment during the summer. Our toddler story times will be starting up again on June 6th at 10:30 a.m. So when we invite people to come out to that. I also kind of want to bring up for conversation the idea of, I had an idea to maybe start a digitization project for Lawndale and Lawndale's history. And that's something that I would like to, talk about at some point with our city council members to see if we can get your support in, bringing that out to the community and allowing the community members to record the history of Lawndale. And we want to reach out to the high schools, Losinger and Lawndale High, to try and do that as well. And what that is essentially getting, old letters, old pictures, anything that the community members want to share, and getting them scanned and put in online archive for everyone to be able to see. And I think that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to close the public comments and bring it up to diocese for any comments from the council. Let's start with Councilmember Daniel Reed.
Okay, I'll just take a couple of these. Thank you, everybody who spoke. Ms. London, thank you for the bags, much appreciated. And I'm sorry if I misgot the name. Was it Waldorf? Anyway, I'm assuming you've talked to staff, so maybe Sean, you and Steve, can you speak to?
Yeah, I saw the property owner or the person's family member that's representing the property owner. So under state law, I don't know the specific incidents, but under state law, you have to apply for owner builder. You have to live in the property at least 1 year. I don't know if sounds similar. I can check with staff. She can come down and talk to myself and find out what needs to be done. Or she could have the general contractor come in and pull the permit. But if you don't, generally speaking, if you don't live on the property within a year, it's state law, you can't pull the permit as owner builder. But you can have a contractor, or you can get permission from when the property owner can sign the paperwork, and we can bring it in. Her father, it sounded like her father, can fill out the paperwork, and we can take it that way. The standards are very strict. In fact, we just reviewed them with the city attorney about 3 months ago and got some updates on it. So it's very strict on it. But that doesn't mean we can't work with them and try to figure a solution.
Okay, so for sure, if you can come in and speak with Sean directly and kind of pull it from there. All right, thank you. I'll pass it on.
Pat Kearney.
I just have a couple of things. Thank you for everyone who spoke. Gary, maybe you can talk to the captain and the lieutenant about the incident. I don't know what stipulates hit and run, if it's vehicle child, but it seems like a brick wall should be considered, you leave the scene of a crime in a brick wall. So maybe you can talk to the captain and the lieutenant. They can help you out. And Ms. Romero, I'm going to let our history buff speak on the history of Lawndale when it's his turn. And with that, I'll pass it on.
Councilwoman Suarez.
Thank you to everybody that spoke. I think they pretty much covered everything, and if there's any way that the city of Lawndale can help with the Lawndale, then we're open to it. So I'll pass it along.
Mayor Pro Tem Osborne.
Thank you, Robert. Sean, you just said that there's probably a way to fix this, but it's another case of state law that's causing problems for, let's say, city governance. But if she only has 1 month with her name on it, there's probably another way to still get the permit. Or which you said she'd have her contractor come in and they could do the permit.
Yes,
they don't need that evidence.
We can accept a letter or something like that. We can work.
And that's kind of the way to get it done. So you have the contractor.
As long as we follow state law.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just reviewed the requirements with our city attorney. They're very strict. There's been some leeway with the state, but with the way, because of, Lawndale's issues and things that we have going on, we interpret it a little bit stricter, but we can work with property owners on a case. We do it on a case-by-case basis. We look at all the circumstances where we can, but generally speaking, you have to be there 1 full year.
Yeah, there's probably a way to still do it. Bottom line, right?
There's always a way to resolve every issue.
That's good. And I heard them tell the captain and Lieutenant Gary that they were outside the room when you were speaking, so maybe you want to speak to them outside anytime while they're still here. Get that taken care of. Lastly, the suggestion on the history thing. Just an FYI, the city manager wants to talk about it. He had the idea to scan one of the history books I did years ago. It's going to be available online shortly?
Yes, actually, there's 2 books that you were involved, as you wrote, about the history of Lawndale. The very first one you did, Councilmember Osborne, Our city clerk, deputy city clerk has scanned that, and we will be posting it very soon. That was done completely by you, so there's no copyright issue, so that
No,
one we can't
no,
put
yeah.
on the website.
Right,
But, and I also know you have thousands of photos too. so-
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the second thing I was going to say.
Oh.
There is a large part of the collection, but not all of it, from Lawndale on Dominguez Hills digital website for the university. Just type in Dominguez Hills Digital Archive and put my name, and you'll come up with a lot of old pictures. But it's all South Bay, not just Lawndale. But anyway, that's coming online shortly for the city. And they had to ask my permission, and I thought long and hard, and no. There's no kickback. It's all for free. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a wonderful idea, the project of the library outlined, particularly the portion with having the children involved, because the children have a different perspective a lot of times from the historical point of view. Obviously, if you're a child today, you can't speak to the history of Lawndale past, 15 years or what have you. You can't reach back 40 years ago or what have you. But you certainly can bring a unique perspective from, perhaps, when you were, elementary age, and now perhaps you may be, a freshman in high school or a senior in high school or what have you. So we would definitely like to work with you on that project and maybe touch base with the school district. So it's a good project. Thank you. I won't rehash some of these that we already spoke of, but I do want to touch really quick on the owners, builders thing. I understand the rationale for the state, state law for owner builders. If I'm not mistaken, didn't she mention, Ms. Wallow, excuse me if I mispronounced your name, that it was a heater?
It's I don't know all the details, but I think it was a furnace. I
Okay,
recall seeing her
a
at the
furnace or
counter.
heater. My understanding of, the reason why you have a owner's builder is, let's say if you're actually building something, let's say you're building a second unit or what have you, or you're doing a major construction, in owners will get a different, treatment, sort of say, than if it was a contractor, right? Because it's your property or what have you. In this case, I don't understand if you're simply changing a heater or a furnace, why you have to be a owner to fall under that
Or
category.
you could be a contractor.
I know you can be a
planning
contractor, you can hire a
But an
contractor.
owner builder,
But the reason why you do an owner's builder is because it saves you money, because you're the owner, so, and you're gonna do the project yourself.
Right.
Are you saying because you're not actually doing the project yourself and someone else is, and that's why it doesn't qualify to be an owner?
You have to be living on the property one full year.
Right. I get
And you
that.
have to show proof of that because we look up the data, who owns the property, we verify that, staff's required to verify all that, the owner, to apply for the owner builder exemption. If they don't qualify for the owner builder exemption, there are some circumstances under the building code where they don't, like plumbing, MEPs, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Not knowing all the details, I don't know if this furnace has some kind of gas lines to it or whatnot, and there was a reason why staff said, you need to qualify for the owner bill. I don't know all the details.
Okay.
We'll definitely meet with her tomorrow. She comes in my office at 7. and we
Okay,
can
maybe that's why
discuss the
she
matter.
mentioned the word mechanic, because there might be some type of exemption under that provision.
I'd have to
or
check into it and check with staff without knowing all the
Okay.
details. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious, okay. All right, thank you, let me see. Ms. London, thank you for the doggy bags. We appreciate the doggy bags for the safety and health fair, which is this weekend, right? This weekend, so those are right on time. And we talked about the library project, and that's all I have to add. Okay, with that, we will close the public comments in response to the comments, and we are at item letter F. I do have one speaker who wished to speak on this item, which is the consent calendar. I'm going to ask the speaker to come forth and say a few words.
Pam London, 171st. I'm still not happy about this whole fence thing, and so I'll take my time to speak about it again. Again, people in this city,
There you go.
I'm here, it's here. People in this city do complain about the fence code, but not about the height as much as wanting privacy, wanting a solid fence, not the openness. So these people do get an advantage from this little code change as far as they get an additional 12 inches. Yes, they have to cut down their hedge, so they cut the hair, but they get the 12 inches. And it's just ridiculous, because we all know what happens in the city, too. You cut that little hedge, yeah, okay, it's temporary, it'll grow back, and it does. And unless somebody's watching and turning it in, well, so they're going to get their hedge back, because it's going to grow. Plus, they're going to have the 5-foot fence. So, win-win, yay. And I guess it's for the children, and that's why we're so happy to change the code that's going to benefit approximately 3 houses that abut to the tracks in one way, shape, or form, whatever. So, great. No wonder nobody follows the code around here. No wonder nobody, they get a code case against them, and it takes years to settle it because... Well, in this case, how long before they finally came and cried to you guys, boo-hoo, I don't want to cut my hedge, boo-hoo, my children, boo-hoo, my dog, boo-hoo, the railroad tracks, boo-hoo, and what are y'all doing? Bending over backwards to be accommodating and giving them another 12 inches. So, yay for their 12 inches, and I just hope to God that they're happy. But I really hope that y'all didn't leave yourselves a back door so that the next 12-inch wanter can't come in and say, I'd like to have my 12 inches too. Could you please forgive that sidewalk that is impeding on my right to have 12 inches height above everybody else too, because I want to be special as well. It's ridiculous. Most cities don't allow 48 inches. Lawndale does. I mean, I'm not complaining. I really appreciate my fence. I really do. But 5 foot, come on. 5 foot? It's not attractive. And even if it is up against the tracks, but hey, their wall that goes parallel to those tracks, that prevents those tracks and their house from being completely exposed, it's still not going to be 5 foot. So this is just so funny.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your comments. Okay, we're now at item F, which is consent calendar. There's 8 items on the consent calendar. What is the pleasure of this body concerning such?
If there are no concerns, I'll make a motion that we approve.
I'll second it.
So the motion's been made that we can approve the consent calendar by Suarez and seconded by Reed. Is there any discussion on the consent calendar? Okay, with the council. You want to read something? Go ahead.
Yes, please.
Yes, ma'am.
The ordinance is item number 2. It's ordinance number 1161-19, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lawndale, California, amending subsection A of Lawndale Municipal Code Section 17.48.050, regulations for fences, hedges, and walls within front yard setbacks in residential zones. Thank you.
Okay, with the council, please vote.
Motion approved unanimously.
Okay, thank you, madam. Next item on our agenda is item 9, which is a public hearings concerning Public Works Department fee schedule. I'm going to do this a little different this time. I'm going to open up the public hearing first. It is now 7:02. We're going to open up the public hearing. The public hearing is now open. I'm going to ask for the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, I'll be filling in for Public Works tonight. This is a fee study to cover wireless-related application for small and major cell sites in the public right-of-way, pertaining to the public right-of-way. We have if the council recalls, a few months back in April, you guys adopted an ordinance where we bifurcated our wireless ordinances. So one goes in the private properties, which is still regulated by community development, and then the other ordinance now is bifurcated based on FCC rulings and other changes in laws. that is reviewed by Public Works exclusively. And that ordinance now, we need to bring forward this fee schedule. So Public Works put together a fee schedule similar, which we would call a time and material study, very similar to what we did in community development last year when the council adopted the new fees there. So they have to put together a study based on time, costs, what it takes to process an application. The Public Works Department put together the study and the fee schedule is attached under Exhibit A. I won't go into great detail because the council already is familiar with the fee study and time and material studies. It covers all the different types of applications that come in, minor and major applications to process these applications. The major wireless is based on the fee is a little higher, somewhat higher than the minor, which is administratively approved. The city attorney's office has reviewed the study. The project's been found to be exempt. All public noticing met our requirements. There are no impacts to our fundings because the fees are cover the cost of staff's time or our consultant, which I'll be talking about in the next item. This concludes staff's report. I'll be happy to answer any questions we have at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that report. Are there any questions of the staff report? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna, at this time, take public testimony. If there's any who would like to testify in this matter, we ask that you stand and please be sworn in by the city attorney. Okay, seeing none, we will then close the public hearing. It's now 7:04. We will close the public hearing for discussion with the council. What is the pleasure of this item? Anybody want to discuss this item?
No questions, no comments?
Okay, so
Then
you'd like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to accept the adoption of the proposed fee schedule for Public Works on attachment 1906-026.
Yes, sir. So motion's been made by Reed and seconded by Mr. Pat Kearney. Is there any discussion on the motion?
No, pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward, okay. Would the council please vote?
Motion approved unanimously.
Okay, thank you, madam. Okay, the next item on our agenda under administration is item number 10, contract service agreement. Let's have the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be filling in for Public Works again, real quick. This is related to the previous item. So this is a telecom firm we're bringing on to process these applications. And the applications will be paid for directly by the applicants, like AT&T, Verizon, et cetera. There will be no impacts on the city's general fund. It'll be covered. This contract's approximately a year with renewals as attached in the staff report, and it covers 24,500 roughly based on the number of applications. We do anticipate an uptick in applications, which have a pretty good and significant impact on Public Works Department. So we needed to bring on a firm to help process with the litany of the plethora of laws that are coming out and with all the changes from FCC, it was more prudent to bring on a firm to help us process those for the public right-of-way applications. This concludes staff's report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Okay,
Thank
are
you.
there any questions of the staff report? Okay, seeing none, what is the pleasure of this body concerning item 10? Okay.
If there's no additions or subtractions, I'll make a motion to accept the staff report.
Okay, without any additions or subtractions, the motion's been made by Kearney to accept the staff report.
And I'll
The
second
staff
it.
recommendation, rather, and it's seconded by Suarez. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the council please vote?
Motion approved unanimously.
Thank you. Item number 11, First Amendment to the solid waste contract.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Previously, the council had authorized the city to go out for RFPs for trash services. We're in the process of doing that. We had expected to receive approximately 4 proposals. Our contract with our consultant, HF&H, who handles our waste management issues and waste collection, had a contract to review those 4 proposals. We actually ended up getting 6 proposals. Per the agreement, the additional review of 2 other RFPs is going to cost the city another $11,000. Those funds will be reimbursed to the city by the successful waste hauler that will be selected. So at this time, we're asking for an amendment to the contract with HF&H in the amount of $11,000 to review 2 additional RFPs.
Okay, you answered my question in your presentation, so are there any additional questions?
No further questions.
Okay, what is the pleasure of this body concerning,
I'll make a motion to accept staff report.
okay, the motion has been made to accept the staff report and it's seconded by
I'll
Mayor
second it.
Miles.
Oh.
Um,
You delayed,
That's
so
when
I
you
was
jumped
like.
in. Pause for somebody to jump in. but- Okay.
You can have it.
Okay, seconded by Pullen Miles. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, would the council please vote?
Motion approved unanimously.
Okay. Thank you once again. Item number 12, opposition to Assembly Bill 392. Let's have the report.
The United States Supreme Court has set the standard for when law enforcement use excessive force as when it is objectively reasonable. And it also is taken from this perspective of the reasonable officer on the scene. And you consider the fact that the police officers are making these split-second decisions in the middle of a situation. And at that point, they have to decide what amount of force is reasonable. There is a bill, AB 392, has been proposed in the California legislature that would change that objective reasonableness standard to a necessary standard to make it easier to prosecute law enforcement officers who use lethal force instead of other methods. Under the standard proposed by this AB 392, officers are allowed to only use deadly force when necessary to prevent imminent death or serious injury, as opposed to when it's reasonable to do so. Reasonable, the standard set by the United States Supreme Court, is used at the federal courts as well as in all other states. So there would not only be litigation to determine whether this law is legal in the first place for one state to have a different standard, but also there would be a whole new body of case law required to interpret what's necessary versus reasonable. So not only is necessary not completely well defined, but it's guaranteed to result in additional litigation and costs. So the LA County Sheriff, as well as a number of other agencies around the state, have submitted letters opposing AB 392. There's a resolution, there's a resolution proposed today for you guys to consider whether you want to also take a stand and oppose AB 392, and direct staff to transmit a copy of that resolution to the governor's office and the legislature. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Just
Go ahead.
Just a quick question. Obviously, the sheriff is in opposition too. I don't see anyone else who either support or oppose this piece of legislation. I would be curious, although I know the answer probably, what would be ALAD's, what would their position that they take?
You asking
Captain, do you know that?
staff?
I
No?
don't know about ALAC specifically.
We don't know. I would say this, that doesn't matter to me. I would oppose this bill just from
Well, I can
personal
understand
beliefs.
it may not matter to you. I'm not saying whether or not it matters to me or not, but it's information that I generally always like to know who's for something and who's against it, just because that's one of the things that we do when we analyze bills. I'm not making.
Do you want to wait on the vote?
No,
I don't.
I'm not saying I want to wait on anything.
Oh, we're
I
not
just
waiting.
want to know what was ALA's position. I mean, especially
So it
being a
doesn't
strong
matter if you
ALA's
don't-
supporter myself. I
If
just
you don't
happen to
find
wanna
out, it
know.
doesn't matter though, right?
Not for tonight. I mean,
Good.
not for not for
That's what I
tonight.
was asking.
Anyone else have anything they want to add?
I do. Since Councilmember Kearney and our city manager sit on the liability trust fund, I'm just wondering if this has come up.
Good question.
The meetings I've been at, it has not been brought up.
No.
No.
Because this potentially could be huge for
Absolutely.
that fund. So I'm
That's
just wondering
correct.
if they've discussed it.
True.
That's correct.
No,
Well,
I strongly oppose this just because I've seen one thing after another in the state of California, from Prop 4757. We know crime's increasing because they've created a case where there is no more crime. You can do whatever you want up to $1,000 now, and you won't. It's been reduced from felony to misdemeanor. So I think we need to oppose it regardless.
What I would say that had I not been a reserve probation officer serving on a task force with particularly the LAPD and the district attorney's office and the city attorney's office and going on early morning compliance calls, I would look at this and on the face of it say that I would support the bill. But seeing that I spent that time in riding with the police officers and been in those situations, and in my case, I wasn't a police officer, but I was in the same situation had it went down.
Did you go
so
to Laser Village training?
No, this was real.
So you know what they're up against.
real life. You know what I mean? At 2:00 in the morning, you knock on the door, and you're in situations where it's about to go down, and being in the position of a police officer, what have you, where you had to make those split moment decisions or what have you, I can appreciate the positions that police officers find themselves in sometimes. And I think, this, although it's very well intended or what have you, but I don't think it will have the effect that they're looking for. And based on that, and given what I know about, being in those positions, for that reason alone, I would oppose the bill and support having a resolution.
I agree with you. I've done ride-alongs, and I know what you're talking about.
Anyone else?
Yeah, same thing, I had naval legal experience as well, and being out there on the street and needing to make that decision, you can't second guess yourself when it comes up. So, it's just another attempt to lock down the officers and not let them do what they need to do.
Right. I'll make a motion to
I'll second
oppose this.
Okay, so the motion has been made that we'll oppose AB 392 by
do as
Osborne
directed by number 2 as well.
And seconded by Mr. Pat Kearney, and to direct the staff to send a letter of such to the appropriate persons. Okay, what is the pleasure of this body concerning? We already did it, but is there any discussion is what I meant to say. Any discussion? Okay.
No, but maybe they can pass it along to the liability trust fund too, to take a stance on it, since
good idea.
that's going to affect them greatly.
We're meeting next Wednesday, so I'll bring it up.
Good idea.
Okay, will the council please vote?
Motion approved unanimously.
All righty, thank you now. Okay, item number 13, concerning amendment to the contract for the city managers. Let's have the staff report.
Earlier this year, the City Council voted to give a 5% increase to several members of the city's central management team. The city is also in negotiations with its labor unions about a new contract with them, including potential raises. At this time, the council has before it a Fourth Amendment to the city manager's contract to give him that same 5% increase that was given to some of the department heads earlier this year. The increase for the 5 weeks that he remains on duty will total $907, and funding is available in the current year's budget to cover that salary increase. Under state law, the city has to have an adopted citywide salary pay schedule. So if this contract amendment is adopted, we need to adopt a resolution to update our salary schedule. So this item includes 2 documents: the Fourth Amendment to the city manager's contract, as well as a resolution adopting the updated citywide salary schedule, excuse me. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, are there any questions?
No questions.
I don't know about that.
So should we should still take a vote on it, or
Yes.
unanimous consent? Okay, what is the pleasure concerning item number 13? Okay, so it's been moved by Osborne and seconded by Kearney?
Okay.
Okay, very good. Is there any discussion on the
I had to
motion?
twist my arm.
Okay, seeing none, with the council, please vote. Move this meeting right along.
Motion approved unanimously.
I'm gonna start assigning motions. Okay, item number 14.
Automatic.
That's part of the 180 days?
That's right, the next item,
Okay,
right.
right.
Okay, so the follow-up item is to consider a contract with the city manager for when he retires to become the interim city manager until the city council hires a new city manager and that person is able to start. Under state law, once someone who's a PERS retiree retires, typically they're supposed to wait 180 days before they then work for another PERS entity. You can get around that if the city council adopts a resolution certifying the critical need for that position before that 180 days has passed. City staff has commenced the recruitment process for the city manager. The new city manager, we expect that the position will be filled by the end of November. So the proposed contract before you would terminate either the sooner the commencement of the new city management or November 30th. Under it, Mr. Mandoki would serve as a part-time interim city manager for the city. He would earn hourly rate equal to the adopted salary schedule for the city manager position, and he would not accrue or benefits or compensation in lieu of benefits. So at this time, we have before you a resolution to make that certification that this is a critical need position, as well as an interim city manager employment agreement. Please let me know if you have any questions.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
From going from full-time to part-time, does this 5% go from 5% to 2.5%?
No.
No.
Okay, I'm just wondering. All right. Yeah. Okay.
And just a point.
It's not half-time.
Okay.
And just a point of clarification, so CalPERS have determined in other instances that city manager is in fact a critical
Yes.
component? Okay, just to
Yeah,
make sure that there's a precedent
That's the most
within their
likely
system.
position
Okay.
to have that critical
Okay,
need found.
just wanted to make sure.
But we are doing this sufficiently in advance to send it to them to make sure they sign off on it.
Okay.
Before he leaves, otherwise we would have to find a different interim.
Okay, great, thank you.
If there are no questions, I'll make the motion that we approve.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Okay, the motion's been made by Suarez and seconded by Reed. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Will the council please vote?
Motion approved unanimously.
No, got one. Okay.
Who's better than that?
Okay. Okay. Okay, item number 15, the budget workshop.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Our finance director, Marla Pendleton, is going to give you a review of our proposed budget for fiscal year 1920. This presentation is going to be a bit different than you're used to in past years. Since coming on board, Marla has been going through the budget, essentially restructuring our accounts, getting clarification, and basically putting in detail that will provide a lot of assistance to us in the future as we start looking at tracking our expenses and our revenues and having a really tight budget. In brief, I just want to highlight a couple of things that you're going to see during this discussion. Of course, as we know, Measure L passed this year. We're going to see a little bit of money this year, but next year we're expecting $2 million. In this current budget, part of the reason we went for Measure L was public safety issues as well as general operations. Between the sheriff's contract, we're expecting right now an increase of about $224,000 as we have thought in the coming years. We also have issues going on with negotiations. We have another item in the budget which you'll see, another $225,000 that's targeted there. So right now there's a $500,000 out of Measure L that's being looked at in the current future budget. Also, there are issues with ongoing PERS liabilities. We've talked in the past about a $100,000 a year increase that we're facing there. We've also been looking at our utility costs. There's water increases that are going on. There's also some one-time costs in the current budget that will be touched on. For example, a class and comp study to facilitate and assist us with our labor negotiations. So with that, we do have a balanced budget, but I do need to stress that it's balanced because we do have Measure L. And while we're using more of it than I would like to see, given this first fiscal year, it's pretty much a necessity. We've got several one-time items in the budget that are going to be used with these dollars. and that will be touched on also. Some of the one-time issues include our 60th anniversary. It's not a huge ticket, but it's money that won't be reoccurring every year either. Another new item that's in here that will be touched on that's in terms of the position is a contract position for security services for the Civic Center, particularly the community center. We get a lot of concerns from the residents about individuals hanging out at the center, skateboarding around the center, the entrances, all kinds of issues that are presenting hazards. So that's something that we've heard from the council in the past. We've worked that into the budget. And so with that, it's kind of a brief overview, some of the highlights. Again, Marla's going to go into some detail. She's got a number of what's the word I want? Pages, slides that she's going to detail the budget on, and I've already walked through it with her. I think it's very, each page builds on the next page, so you may have questions. Certainly feel free to ask those, but I think you'll see they'll all be answered, but at any time, please don't hesitate to ask any questions you might have. So with that, I'll turn it over to our finance director.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so our budget workshop. What I'm basically going to go over is general fund. That's the main portion, and then parts that we're recommending to be pulled out of the general fund. Going through the accounting structure for the budget, there were two revenue sources that I saw in the general fund that are restricted money. I'm recommending that those get pulled out and put into separate funds so that we have good accountability on what's coming in and that they are used for the restricted uses. That is our AB 939 franchise fees, which is restricted for groundwater sustainability, and our business license AB 1379 revenue, which is restricted for disability access. So those are two new funds that we're recommending that we pull out of the general fund. Also, there are two departments that are more business type activities. We're charging user fees for them. I'm recommending for transparency to pull those out into their own funds as well, and that would be community services and community development. And I will present those once I get through the general fund department. I'll go through those individual budgets as recommended so that you can see how those look and how, outside of the general fund. Whoops, I think I clicked two. Yes, I did. Okay, general fund revenue. This is just an overview on the sources of revenue that are coming in for the general fund. If you notice the 89% there at the bottom, that is property taxes, not property taxes, it's taxes, tax revenue. Mm-hmm. So we're predominantly supported by taxes. Also, there's a 5% up there. That is for court and traffic fines, basically parking tickets, and then 3% of it is for our license and permits. So that's the overview of what's included in the general fund. I'm sorry? I thought somebody said something. Okay, so we go over the main source being taxes. This is the general fund revenue by dollars and where we're looking at it for fiscal year 19 to complete and fiscal year 20. Fiscal year 19, we're estimating 13.5 million, and everything that you're going to see here in dollars will be in the thousands just to make it easier to see on the slides. That 13.5 million excludes the one-time money that we received for property tax sales. So I keep saying property tax. For land sales, that's 1.4 million, so that's not included in that. What we're estimating for this coming year is $12.2 million for an increase of 1.8 million. And if you'll notice, the biggest increase we're going to see is in taxes. That's predominantly because of Measure L. And then we're seeing some other ups and downs. We're seeing use of money. That's our interest that we're expecting to go up this year for investment purposes. And I'll go over the largest sources of revenue so that you can see what makes up that. Tax revenue increases, as I said before, 2 million. The largest increase is seeing in Measure L transaction revenue, 1.6 million. The reason we're not seeing the whole 2.1 million is because we have a quarter of that projected in fiscal year 19, which is $500,000, and then 2.1 million for fiscal year 20 for an increase of 1.6 million. Our motor vehicle and lieu tax, which is from vehicle registration, 220,000. Sales tax, we're estimating an increase of 172,000. And then our bed tax, which is our transient occupancy tax from hotels, 38,000. And then everything else is kind of small. It nets into a little decrease of 27,000. Charges for services. Charges for services, we're expecting to see a 155,000 increase. Most of that from encroachment permits, where we're estimating it will go from a budget of 230,000 to 83,000. And that's more in line of what we're actually seeing this fiscal year. So we're actually budgeting that now. Vehicle imposed fees, 15,000 decrease, and then industrial waste permits, an increase of 7,000. Other revenue decreases, that's 98,000. The majority of it is in our state mandated reimbursement programs. 60,000 of that was budgeted this fiscal year, of which we haven't seen any of it. It's just a timing issue. So I recommend that we don't budget it for next year until we know that it's actually coming in. So we look at the programs. So that's going to be a $60,000 increase. And then miscellaneous revenue, which is a whole bunch of sources of things that are just put into one account, 25,000 decrease based on actual. And then everything else netted in that category of 13,000. So here's our general fund trend by revenue source. If you notice at the bottom, almost everything is pretty much flat. You'll see this one, this little purplish one that says other revenue, the increase here that spikes, that's the 1.4 million related to our property sale. And then this one at the top is our tax revenue. And what you're seeing here is it was kind of flat. Fiscal year 19 projected is going up. That's the 500,000 for Measure L. And then you're seeing it go up fiscal year 20, which is the remainder of Measure L, and then some of our sales tax going up. So what we're expecting after this is we might still see some small little increases, but it's going to level off a new level. Brings us to our general fund expenditures. This is showing us the category of expenses in the general fund. 64% of it is in operations. 27% of our expenditures are for personnel. 9% is in transfers, which is going up because we're breaking out some of our departments. And then 0 basically is in capital. And we'll go over each of those budget categories as well. These are our personnel costs by departments. I know it's a little small to read, but just to look at it overall, what we're seeing is for fiscal year 19 budget, we have 4.4 million approximately that we're estimating as for the budget. Actuals are going to be close to that. And we're seeing that the budget next year, it looks like it's a little bit less, but the reason that is because the two departments here at the bottom, community development and community services, are pulled out. So I'll show you what it looks like when we see a comparison of just the departments that we're looking at. But just to look here, what's staying in the general fund, majority of it would be, or the largest expenses would be municipal services, would be the expenses, and then general ops. So those are your large ones. Some of the other departments are smaller because they're allocating it to different funds. This is just the piece relating to general fund. Okay. This is just to give you a comparison of what the personnel budget is like. The amended budget for fiscal year 19 is 4.4 million. These are the pieces that were taken out of it in fiscal year 19. Community services, 945,000 personnel cost. Community development, 160,000 for 1,100,000 to give us an adjusted amount to compare to current year departments that are left in the budget. For personnel cost, general fund, 3.3 million. The recommended fiscal year 20 budget for personnel cost is 3.8 million. So we're actually looking at an increase in personnel cost of 571,000. And I'll go over and tell you exactly what those costs represent. This is the 571,000. This is what makes it up in a summary fashion. Union negotiations currently, if we take everything that is being requested for the current year, it will cost in fiscal year 20 alone, 225,000. We have increases in our PERS unfunded liability, which will increase fiscal year 20, 92,000. Street maintenance is showing an increase of 89,000, and that's because these weren't in the general fund before, they were in other department budgets, 1.35 full-time equivalents, so putting those in general fund this year is increasing the budget. We've got the payout for the city manager's retirement. We're budgeting that next year because the actual retirement date is in July. So that's 82,000 is what the cost is with the increase approved tonight. Grounds maintenance allocation change, that's funding where we had 0.4 full-time equivalent with Measure R. Now that's in general fund, 32,000. Retiree health benefit increases, 26,000. Our PARS retirement contributions, that's for past highly compensated individuals that have now left the city. They were receiving an additional 22,000 for that contribution this year. And then a net 3,000 for other changes, coming up with our total personnel budget increase of 571,000. General fund operating costs, our operation costs. So this is another category of expenses. This was the largest out of all of them, if you recall the pie chart at the beginning of the expenses. So our budget for fiscal year 19, 9.6 million. Fiscal year 20 is proposed at 9.3 million. If we look at the largest of all these departments, you'll see this pie chart. This represents public safety. 6,018,000, so that is our largest cost. We've got a couple other pieces that are big, not quite next to that one, but general operations, we have 854,000. And then we also have 772,000 for grounds and facilities. So what general operations is basically our overhead, like retirement and costs that are citywide. So instead of putting them in a budget, each individual budget, they're being paid here. Also, our insurances are being paid here, and they're just all in one category. So we'll go over the largest in the department so that you can see why increases. Actually, let's look at a comparison first, like we did before. Fiscal year 19 budget, amended budget is 9.6 million for operations. If we take out the two components, two departments that we're recommending taking out, community services, we're going to leave crossing guards in the general fund, but we're going to take the community service portion out, so we're only taking 306,000 out. Community development, 334,000. That's for a total of 640,000 to come up with a comparison from year to year. So fiscal year 19 adjusted for comparison purposes are 9,001,000. The recommended operating budget for fiscal year 20 is 9,350,000. for an increase of $349,000. So that just gives you a comparison basis. So what makes up that $349,000? Well, this is just a subtotal here at the bottom, so there's 2 pages of detail that makes up that whole total, but the largest being at the top. Public safety, the contract is going up 3.5%, which will yield a $187,000 increase. There's also, based on a percent of the contract for liability insurance, it's going from 10.5% to 11%, results in $72,000 increase. Those 2 components are giving us $244,000 increase from last fiscal year. Information services is going up $96,000. What's included in that $96,000 is a redesign of our city website, $50,000, accounting software, $21,000, and then our contractor is asking us for our business license software to do an upgrade for online collections. That's $25,000 to actually put that into place. So that's $96,000 in the IT system. We have $91,000 budgeted for city attorney. $50,000 is basically what they're over budget to actual this year, so that would be based on hours. And then the city attorney is asking for a rate increase. We're estimating that'll be a $41,000 increase for a total of $91,000. Admin services is requesting $70,000 increase, of which $60,000 is in a classification study citywide, and then contracts relating to employee issues, $10,000 to be available. Street maintenance, $31,000 increase. That's basically related to water, our water charges, and that's something that we're looking at. Why is there such an increase? Is it rates? Is it, are there leaks somewhere? So we're looking into that a little bit further, but that's what the current costs are. We're going to see if we can hold that down if possible. So we are working together on that. Our crossing guard contract increase, $25,000. Our general ops, this is a whole slew of things for $25,000. It includes our community center upgrades, $50,000. Property insurance increase, $33,000. Worker comp increase, $14,000. Equipment maintenance contracts, $3,000. And then just other miscellaneous items of $3,000. Offset by savings in our liability insurance, which is going down $62,000. And then a one-time expense that was in the fiscal year 19 budget, but not here. That was for the Gruber report of $16,000 savings. So that nets to 25. This is continued on the next slide. Other increases, municipal services. In municipal services, we're estimating a $12,000 increase in our animal control vet contracts. Printing costs for citations that we didn't have before they were included in the contract, now they're not, so there's a $1,000 increase. And then 2 new events that are being recommended, National Night Out and Christmas with a Cop, and that's for a grand total of $18,000. Grounds and facilities, we're estimating an increase in utilities of $17,000, and we're actually seeing that this year. And then there's other increases of $12,000. Included in operations, we do have some savings. Public Works, the solid waste contract. If you recall, I recommended that revenue source be pulled in into a new fund. This is an expense that offsets that revenue source, $136,000 contract. Our Public Works interim staff are now full-time, so that's in the personnel cost, so we'll be saving money under operations, $104,000. And then city clerk will have a $40,000 savings relating to general elections that won't be happening for that particular year. So it nets into $349,000. Okay. Capital budget, this is everything being requested this fiscal year. We've got a couple departments requesting funding. Information services. Our windows that we're using, our Office Windows suite that we're using for our computers is an old version. It's no longer being supported. As a result, 49 computers are running on it citywide. 32 of those can be upgraded, just the software. 17 computers, however, will not run with the new one, so they actually need to be replaced. That's going to cost $20,000 in total for those changes. Reporting upgrade for the finance system, also needed because of the upgrades, because of problems that we're having in the finance system, $3,000. And then equipment replacement as needed, and that would be things like keyboards or anything with systems across the board, $12,000 for a total of $35,000 capital budget. In cable TV, there are 2 items being requested. That is an upgrade in the video storage system of $6,000, and then an aerial video drone for photography and video. That's $2,000 for a total of $8,000. Under municipal services, they've got some desks that are basically falling apart, so they need to be replaced. $3,000 for a grand total of $46,000 being requested citywide. Operational transfers. I'm going to go over the individual budgets for community services. But right now, what is needed to fund community services, recreation, and this is what's expenditures minus the revenue that's coming in. This is how much support is needed from the general fund to make them whole based on the request, but I will go over those individual budgets. Recreation needs $967,000, and the senior program's $165,000. And then our other transfer is for Housing Authority. This is for the successor agency loan repayment. $962,000 is projected to come in this year as a payment. 20% is set aside, so we'd have to transfer from the general fund $192,000 of that for $1,324,000. Summary of the general fund. So what we're seeing here is the expenses versus the revenue. The revenue for fiscal year 19, $16.1 million. Expenses, $13.7. Reclassification of the 2 funds that we're breaking out because of restricted uses, $334,000. We should have excess revenue over expenditures of $2,060,000. This includes the $1.4 million that in the third quarter budget update that we designated to set aside for our general plan. It's included in this amount as a reserve because it's a designation. It's not a restriction. It's not outside legal authority to restrict it. It's something that's in your authority to remove or to keep on. So that is an internal designation. So that's the difference in the terminology there, but that's included in the $2,060,000. For fiscal year 18, we're estimating revenues at this point to be $15.2 million, $14.6 million of expenses for an excess of $691,000. So you see how that measure L 2.1 million has now dwindled down to $691,000 left. That shows that we have actually used that in the request. Okay. So the question here that I have at the bottom is, what number gets added to this excess for our reserve policy? So here is our policy. General fund reserve shall be defined as the excess of general fund revenue over general fund expenditures at the end of the fiscal year. That's what we just calculated in the previous screen, plus the accumulated reserve balance of prior years. The reserve policy shall be as follows. The city shall accumulate and maintain general fund reserves totaling 100% of the annual general fund budget. Okay? So let's look at the accounting equation. This is how an accountant sees what a reserve policy is. And basically, it is our assets minus our liabilities equals our equity or our fund balance. Reserve is the amount of fund balance that is not legally or contractually restricted. Okay? In the past, the finance department interpreted the reserve as basically this. The projected fund balance for 15-20 is $17.5 million. The budget expenditures, $14.6 million, so our fund reserves would be 120%. I'm interpreting a little bit different today, and that's the next slide. Current finance interpretation of reserves. I'm starting with our audited financial statements that were presented to council, and it had unrestricted fund balance of $6.1 million in the general fund. Our projected excess revenue over expenditures that we showed earlier for fiscal year 19 is $2,060,000. Fiscal year 20, $691,000. For our estimated unrestricted fund balance at the end of fiscal year 20 of $8,894,000. Compare that to what we're expending, our budgeting for fiscal year 20, $14.5 million. We're looking at a general fund reserve of 61%. So it's about half of what was in it before. The difference in interpretation, it removes the impact of the successor agency loans. It removes the impact of land held for development. It removes the value of prepaid costs. What it includes is cash and investments, current receivables less current liabilities, and current means within 60 days we're going to pay it or receive it. And this approximates our cash or cash equivalent value. For example, our audited values at the end of fiscal year 18, cash and investments were $16.2 million. Our unassigned fund balance was $6.1 million. So it's really close to cash. And that's the interpretation I'm having, is that we're at a 61%. So here's a policy consideration for discussion for council. You may want to add clarification for general fund reserve definition to ensure that the goal of council is achieved. And based on reserve definition, you may want to reduce the reserve percentage from 100%. And that, of course, is at your discretion, but I just want to put that out there so that you can discuss and decide exactly what your policy is, to make sure that I clearly know what it is and that we try to achieve that. Okay, so that's all I have for general fund. The rest is what's broken out from the general fund. Are we good? I know it's a lot of information. Okay.
Yes,
I have a
thank
quick
you.
question,
You're
though,
doing,
Robert.
you're doing well. We're following.
Robert?
Okay, good.
I have a quick question
Let's,
for you,
let's
though.
pause, yeah.
If we were to ask the question of what would be the trajectory or the timeline to go to 100% on the current path we're taking, what would that timeline be? A decade? You did, good. And what would that number be?
What I would say is if we kept our general fund expenses consistent at the 14.3, and we had an excess of around $650,000 a year, it would take about 9 years.
About a decade then. Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why I put the question out. You may want to consider reducing it. You could have a long-term, but you might want a short-term goal, just maybe 75% or something, so that we could reach it and maintain it. But that, of course, is your discretion, but I just wanted to throw it out there for consideration.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But again, if we retain the 100%, it looks like we're just a decade away from
Correct.
from being there. So
Correct. Providing we keep things tight.
I look at
and-
that as good news, so.
As she qualified, assuming nothing else changes, we maintain.
Well, yeah.
Which is not going to happen in reality, but,
Right.
but that's an estimate. It's something we had talked about previously, so.
Right, you don't know the future.
And many cities don't even have 50%, but, you know, having 100 is a really good goal.
It certainly
Something
is.
lower is absolutely more realistic, but to strive for 100 is certainly doable.
Right. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, let me,
I know it
since
took a
we're
lot of
mentioning
number-
that, let's stay on
Sorry, go ahead.
that vein. Go ahead, you got something on
Apologies.
that?
I know it took a lot of number crunching on that. You know, there was a little confusion in the past over, we had a 100% reserve, but it turned out to be the long-term receivables that we don't know if we're ever going to get from the state. So this makes much more sense in this format. I appreciate it.
And I
Right.
keep hearing the term cash, so I wanted to clarify that. If your intent is cash, put cash, but accountants, when we hear reserve, we think fund balance. Because really, what you have to budget is your equity, how much is available, plus your current year revenue. So that really is what's available to budget each year. So that's how we look at it.
Right. Can't pay
Right.
payroll if the state hasn't paid us, if we're not upside down. So,
Yeah, not the
This is-
long-term stuff.
This is much appreciated.
And I'm glad you, Madam Treasurer, that you made that clarification, because we've, in the past, we have not had that clarification from the department for whatever reason. We were under the impression that, and not only us, neighboring cities as well, was under the impression that when you say reserves, you're talking about things that are liquid, that you can go to right away and have access to, whether it's cash or what have you.
This is liquid.
I know this is
Yeah,
liquid.
yeah.
But I'm saying how we got to that, how we
Right.
got to that 120.
Right.
So the word on the street that we had 120. Well, when you say in reserves, that means that it's liquid, you can go right to it, which wasn't necessarily the case where we had 120% that it was liquid, right? Now, we had some that was liquid and others that was not so liquid in receivables, or whatever term you guys use. I think this clarifies it in that these are actual assets that's liquid, that we can go
Correct.
right to, that we're not dependent on the state or any other entity delivering to us that may or may not come to us on a timely manner. Also, when you say 100%, if you want to set a goal of having a reserve policy at 100% or whatever the percentage is, and know realistically you're not going to make that goal, to me, it's not sound public policy. For me, sound public policy is to have a goal that is attainable, and attainable year from year, not from, okay, in 9 years, if nothing happens, we'll be able to reach that goal. But if it was reasonable that we would have 75%, 70%, which, by the way, like the city manager was saying, no city has that amount. I mean, very few, I should say, would have that amount. I think the average, is it 40? If you're looking at 40, you're looking
It could be
less,
less,
you're
yeah.
looking
Yeah,
pretty well.
I think it's less.
So if we set the goal to as 60 or 70%, not only will we be reaching a realistic, budget and goal in terms of our reserves, but we would actually reach it and stay within the reserves, as opposed to when you have a budget that say it's 1% and then you don't meet it, the reserves, or you have to deplete the reserves because you need to use it. Then it suggests that you're doing something out of the norm, like you're depleting your reserves, you're depleting your money, you're not as healthy as you should have been because you didn't reach it. Well, it was not realistic in the first place if you're talking about the reserves. And that's why I want to thank you for clarifying that. And that is a discussion that I guess we would have. I don't know if that's at this night
Correct.
or at another meeting. What should be the reserve on policy? Whether it should be reduced from 100% to 70 or whatever is the comfortable level that we can reach year by year and not in 9 years or what have you. Even if that does happen.
I don't
So
think we should vary from the old policy of 100% myself. I think
Say it again.
that's been wise fiscal policy for this city for a long time, and I think that's what we should strive and keep.
Well, you can always
That's
have,
my
even-
opinion.
as you notice, if we say we have 120% and the policy was 100%, that means you went over, right? So.
Yeah, but we've learned that was a
would-
fallacy tonight.
Yeah, I
and
understand
we've
that.
been
But
told
that
that
would
even
ring
prior to
true
this
no matter
meeting.
what the policy, the ceiling is, that you could
Regardless
go
of that
over.
120% or other numbers, I still think the city should have.
Well, I
100%
understand that, but if you
reserve
go,
policy.
if the policy is 75%, 80%, and you have 100% or 120%, you still can go over whatever that is. It's just that you are reaching whatever the target is that you reached, that you set, I should say. I'm not saying that, yeah, once you get to, like say for instance, we make 80%. Once you get to 80%, oh no, you can't have any more reserves. You gotta spend it down to keep it at that. I'm not suggesting that by any means. You wouldn't do that in your own finances. But if you have a targeted goal and you exceed it, that's fine. But at least you had your goal and it was a realistic goal, as opposed to you had a goal that was
Sounds
too
like
high
a
and
realistic
you
goal
didn't-
if we're gonna get there
and
in
you
9
didn't reach
years,
it.
possibly.
Yeah, possibly you could.
But part of that also is your union negotiations right now. We're only showing what we're setting aside current year, but if we give increases every year.
That's understood.
We
Yeah.
know that's gonna go down and
There's
it's
a
gonna
lot of
take longer.
variables in all
Right,
this. That's
right.
understood. I
I'm just
just
thinking
wanted
that's
to-
one thing. So yes, there are
All I
variables.
simply wanted, you gave it the answer,
Right.
was what's the best guess estimate?
Mhm.
Thank you.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
9 years.
So the bottom line is whether we have 100% or 70 or 75, whatever, we would be in a much better position, or still be in a much better position than a lot of cities of comparable size in terms of our budget and having the reserves. So it's just a philosophical difference to me, because if it's 80% and you go to 100%, well, you still have the same amount of money, you know.
The number is a goal. I mean, anyway, how about we get back to the presentation?
No problem.
Okay, so you went through that portion. Okay, now let's continue.
Are you ready? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So the next part, these are the funds that I'm recommending be broken out from the general fund, and it's community services recreations, community services senior activities, and community development. And these would be the new fund numbers that they would be going into. So the question is, why should departments be separated from the general fund? Well, the general fund accounts for governmental activities primarily funded through general purpose taxes. Use of general purpose tax revenue is at the discretion of council. Enterprise funds, which is being recommended for these services, accounts for external goods or services provided for a fee. These services may be supported by the general government, but the key difference is the fund type is to account for the cost of providing external services. By classifying community development and community service functions as enterprise funds, there's transparency on what the cost of providing services are. This will aid in rate development and the amount of general fund resources, if any, required to provide the services. I'm going to start with community development. Community development provides two main functions that have historically been accounted for in the general fund. Building, which ensures compliance with building code standards through inspections and review of building, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, grading, and landscape services. Majority of services are provided on a contract basis with the County of Los Angeles. The second function is planning. It includes reviewing plans for development and design of land use, zoning, and environmental impact. Services are provided by city employees. This is the revenue for community development. Fiscal year 17, about 400,000. Fiscal year 18 went up to 630,000. We're estimating 754,000 for fiscal year 19. The budget is 675,000, which you know we did make some budget adjustments, but I selectively took everything that was 100,000 or more and recommended those. These are under that, so we did not recommend them, but we are expecting to get more. We're anticipating a decrease in services next year, so we're budgeting $589,000, which is just a little bit below the 18 level. Now, in coming up with the revenue and expenditures, we looked at the ratio of what the contract services are versus the revenue, so we brought them in line. So if our level services go up, down, or whatever, we would adjust the budget through our quarterly budget updates, consistent with what we see happening actually. So I will be doing monitoring and giving you budget updates throughout the year. Okay. Here's an overview, the revenue that we discussed along with the related expenditures. If we look at estimated, fiscal year 19, what we're looking at is 565,000 direct expenses, 754 revenue, for 189,000 excess. Now, excess doesn't mean we're profiting, because if you look at the expenses, these are direct expenses only in this budget at this time. There should also be an allocation of indirect expenses. For instance, you cannot operate community development without the accounting function, bringing in the revenue that they have and paying their bills. So an allocation of the expense related to that should be in this budget, as well as with general operations, city manager, any support function. So we want to make sure that we get the indirect cost in there. They're not here at this time, but to see the true cost of services provided by the city, we do want to see these budgets made whole and include a general fund indirect cost allocation in here. Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear. So for fiscal year 20 budget, what we're recommending, the revenue is $589,000, the direct expenses $504,000, so there will be an excess of $84,000 with the direct cost only. Did I not have another one? I guess not. Okay, so that's our community development. Community services. There are two main public functions for community services that have historically been in general fund also. Our recreation activities and events and our senior activities. In addition, we have school crossing guards that are paid from and will remain in the general fund. Budgeted cost anticipated to be $126,100 in fiscal year 20, an increase of $16,100 over the $110,000 budgeted in fiscal year 19. Community services revenue. We are looking at estimated fiscal year 19 is $220,000. The budget is $240,000, so it's coming in a little bit less. We're projecting revenue for fiscal year 20 at $225,000. And this is for all the functions combined. And I will show you at the end how it looks, breaking it up into the new funds by functional area. Community services financial overview. So again, this is the $220,000 revenue estimated for fiscal year 19. Direct expenses, $1,321,000, for a subsidy from the general fund in the current year of $1,101,000. We're estimating for fiscal year 20, $225,000 revenue. Total cost, $1,482,000. So the subsidy would be $1,257,000. And again, I didn't mention it, but again, these are including direct cost only, not indirect. Okay. Looking at the expenses, the budget fiscal year 19, and this is the amended budget compared to the proposed fiscal year 20 budget. Personnel is going from $945,000 to $973,000, $28,000 increase. Increase is related to recreation coordinator, fully recovered from the fund itself, 0.2 full-time equivalents. It was in Prop A, you know, that portion of it for fiscal year 19. Now it's all in the function. Operations is estimated to go from 407,000 to 509,000, 102,000 increase. This is what in the far corner, what's making up the increase: equipment maintenance, 2,000, contract services, 46,000 increase, community events, 47,000 increase, senior activities, 6,000, for a total of 102,000 increase. And I'll go over the larger ones so you can see exactly what's in them and what makes up those increases. This is contract services. As you can see, this is everything that makes it up. The major differences: crossing guards, 16,000 increase. Class instructors, they're planning to offer a few more classes, 7,000 increase. Youth sports officials, decrease of 3,000. That's kind of nets. 26,000 for the community center unarmed security guards that are being requested. That's for a total of 46,000. Community events, we said that would go up, estimated 47,000. There's two things making that up. Youth Day Parade security, that was covered by JAG money. It's not guaranteed. If it does come in, it's being reduced. It could be 12,000 this year, but we're budgeting here. If we get the JAG money, it'll offset this, but it's 22,000. And then the city's 60th anniversary celebration, 25,000. So that's making up 47,000 increase. Okay. Here's the overview by funds, how we're breaking it out for this next year. In the first column, you'll see fiscal year 19 budget, the revenue, expenses, and the subsidy of $1,112,000. If we show it broken up, it will be in the general fund, 126,000 crossing guards. Recreation fund, we're looking at a subsidy of 966,000. Senior activities, 165,000, for the grand budget of 1,257,000. That concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I would be happy to discuss.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. First of all, I want to not only thank you for the presentation, but I want to say you did absolutely outstanding job with the presentation. It's very easy to follow, very substance, so I appreciate that. I'm sure the council appreciate it, and we just appreciate it when we're not lost in shuffling the papers, trying to figure out where we are. So thank you for that. With that being said, why don't we enter into a discussion on the budget?
No, I'm good.
And got anything?
No, I have no further questions.
We can go. Let's go down the road.
I just have one thing, crossing guard, but we'll be meeting with the school on Wednesday to bring this back up.
Yeah, my question with the crossing guards would be, I saw that the increase was at 16. What
That's correct.
Constitute that increase? Why such a drastic increase?
There are adjustments in the hourly rate for the contractor that comes up. I believe, Mike, that is the bulk of it, isn't it?
Yeah, but what justifies it?
It's the minimum wage increases that are happening for their employees.
Yes, yeah, and it was a 2-year contract. We did an RFP on last year, and that's the going rate. If you remember, we disassociated with the previous company that we had, so we went back to all city management. So, yeah, it's minimum wage increases are part of it, and the other part of it is the California wage law, where if you have entities or employees that are working a split shift, state laws that you have to pay them an hour in between. So if you have somebody working for hypothetically 7:30 to 8:45 and then coming back from 12 to 1:30, whatever it is, California state law requires that we pay them for an hour. So that's partly responsible as well, but it's just general increase in wage.
So those costs, I'm sorry, those costs were now part of this contract, which the other vendor had left out and wanted an adjustment to, but their contract did not provide for that. So, and last year, I think we saw a $10,000 increase without those items. We tried to have the school district fund that increase only, which they refused. And as Councilmember Kearney said, I think we need to address this increase again with the school district and then possibly look at the future of this program as, like Hawthorne has done.
So we're comfortable that if we went with, hypothetically went with another vendor, although I know there's only a few, that this would be comparable to what we would pay if we went with another vendor?
Well, that's hard to say. I don't know if we would ever go back and be associated with the previous vendor that we were the last time around. But All City Management is one of the only games in town. As of right now, I only know of 3 of them. And one of them, RFP, they're just simply not qualified. They're dabbling in crossing guard services. They're not really a crossing guard company, so that's a tough one to answer.
Well, we won't say that they're not
We're always-
qualified. We'll say they don't meet our needs.
I would just add, if the other
Yeah.
vendor had put in all those costs, it would have been comparable. So the answer
Yeah.
really is yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Is that all you had on that? Okay.
And did we follow up with the volunteer crossing guards? I mean, I know it's a lot to ask of people, but
It is a lot. We're not aware of any cities that have a full volunteer program. So they're not reliable. There's training issues, there's liability issues, but we have not done that yet. We have, no.
Long Beach isn't volunteer? I know it was
Not
20 years ago. I
believe
don't know
so.
about now.
I know the city of Torrance tried that several years ago unsuccessfully, and now they went to crossing guards. That there's a huge amount of liability, from what I understand, in that, and training and whatnot.
And 2 years ago.
And as it was
Hawthorne-
mentioned, as
Yeah.
Mr. Kearney mentioned, we've discussed this with the school districts before, and we'll definitely bring it back to them again with, there was a surprise conversation the last time. They didn't realize that their children were actually walking through our crossing guards. It's like, wait a minute, of course our children are crossing through. So the conversation's open, they're expecting it.
Yeah.
Question is,
thing I-
will we
Yeah,
get anything?
yeah, they
That's-
wasn't aware of that.
That's the
Okay.
argument.
But we have X's up our
Yeah.
sleeve.
yeah,
Okay,
maybe we can
very
look
good.
at something else that we provide that isn't as necessary as the crossing guards and then swap it out and, or something. And then I also had a question with regards to our events. Do we allow sponsors for our events?
We do have a sponsorship policy, and it's just interesting you to mention that, because we are going to start, soliciting sponsorships for special events in this next fiscal year. Yeah, but we do have a sponsorship policy. It's very organized, and it's
Okay.
there. So we do plan on dabbling in that this year.
Because I'm just wondering if we can offset some of these costs that we provide with, sponsors. I mean, a lot of cities do that, so I don't know if it's something that we're trying to, bring out a little more. I mean, it's no cost to us, and it only benefits the community.
I believe it can offset some costs, absolutely, and that's the goal, is to relieve as much burden on the general fund as possible.
And then I had another question with regards, for some of these, for example, the web design, I know our assistant city clerk is kind of working on that. Is that figure based off of research or whatnot? Because it seems pretty excessive.
Yeah, I have this.
Yeah, we reached out to various cities and asked them, and that was pretty much the average cost of just a startup with the annual fees kind of built in, if there were any.
But we will put it out for RFP and then,
Correct, yeah, we'll go through the whole RFP process when it comes time to build a new website.
thank you.
I'm going to hope that maybe this was factored in, but as Sean well knows, we have a retail giant soon to be opening in the city, and hopefully that'll really increase our tax revenues. Is that factored in this in any way for the future, in what we heard tonight?
Projected revenue?
Well, I don't believe we have the full amount in there, because until the door is open, I know the best practice is not to count a sales tax dollar.
It's not factored in, that's my
No,
question.
so we'll have that.
There may be some silver lining on
There
the
will
horizon
be
that
some
we don't
additional,
have,
absolutely. And I
what we've seen
know
tonight.
Sean is working with a couple of other retailers to come into the city too, but.
Right. So
I
to
can
be
tell you
optimistic.
firsthand experience from my Murrieta days when we were opening Walmarts and Kohl's, until they open the door, you don't count a dollar.
Don't count your chickens before they hatch, I get it. But The optimistic viewpoint would be that things could be even better than what we heard.
Yes, we'll see
from the
some
numbers,
sales tax
right?
increase in the coming
That-
years.
That's all. I just want to have that sense. I'd like to be optimistic.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
We get our quarterly reports.
Yes.
We look forward to that. Okay, I do have a few questions. And I know we were got an infusion of sales tax due to Measure L, and we appreciate the residents voting for Measure L and giving us those extra dollars that's definitely needed here in the city of Lawndale. But I want to make sure that we don't get in a position to where, because we have extra dollars, so-called extra dollars, additional I should say, that we are spending it up till the brim just because we have some extra or additional dollars, which is one of the reasons why we thought it was necessary to pass the sales tax increase, so that we won't, because we was getting close to the brim. And I want to make sure that we have that in mind when we're adopting a budget and new programs and things of that nature. And so I just want to make sure that everything is, we're not just spending it just because we just happen to find ourselves infused with additional cash. I do have one question on the business licensing online collection upgrades for $25,000. I'm wondering, can you give me more details on what that program is about?
That's actually the vendor who we purchase our license for business license, because we have a software for that. They want everything to be online, so they're upgrading it. So they're basically pushing us to do that. Now, one of the things, this is the cost that would be to move the data from the old version to the new version. What I would like to do, that's the cost, I would like that in the budget, but I want us to go out with an RFP to see if we're gonna go online. Our current vendor only does business license. I would rather it be online with everything for the city.
Okay.
So what else can we use that? Can we either get that service for less money elsewhere or more service citywide?
Okay.
So I'm just putting the dollars in that they're asking for with the fact that we would come back with an RFP.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Okay, my next item is city attorney services. I see an increase of 41,000 rate increase. I just wanted to see what is this about? What's the justification for this rate increase? What additional services we will receive, if any? Basically, what's the? Because this is a pretty good substantial amount of money, 41,000. And maybe it's justified. I just need to know what it's about.
I'll just add quickly, it's been 5 years since there's been an adjustment to the attorney's contract, and I know that the firm submitted a proposal for the council's consideration, and because it's being considered by you, it is included in the budget at this time.
Right, so approving the budget doesn't approve
Right,
that
yeah.
increase.
That's true.
That's something that will require separate action of the
Right.
council.
Okay, but, okay, thank you for that. We did the crossing guards, I skipped that one. This one, what do we have? Yeah, going back on the events as well. We do have a lot of events for a small city. We're known for our events. We have a lot of events, and I'm wondering on here, we got National Night Out, which is actually a good program. We've been meaning to bring that to the city for a couple of years. Christmas with the Cop. Tell me more about that, and how much is that? I mean, I see both of them combined. Is that 1,000, okay? That's just 1,000, okay? But tell me more about this Christmas with the Cop and.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Just real briefly, Christmas with the Cops is an event that I'm familiar with from other cities that I've worked in. Basically, what we do is we get some information from the school districts or from the schools for underprivileged kids or kids that are probably going to have a less fortunate Christmas, maybe 5 to 10 kids. We would take that $1,000, use it to buy gifts for those kids. The city workers would do it, and then we would have a breakfast where the police officers would actually give those gifts to the kids, and the families would be invited as well.
So if we have National Night Out, which is really a police officer event.
Correct.
And then we have Christmas with the Cop. So is the 4,000 K for the National Night Out and well, then it just says miscellaneous, for 1,000 miscellaneous. So that means it's gonna cost 4,000 plus 1,000 miscellaneous for both National Night Out and Christmas with a Cop, for both events combined? Is that what that means?
Yes, I predict it actually to be less than expensive than that. Yeah, if you give me 1 second.
You got it?
So they are two different events, and we did do a breakdown for estimating the cost of each of them. National Night Out is a national event that happens in a number of cities. It's basically to honor law enforcement, but also to honor first responders, fire department, ambulance, EMTs. It's a city event, so everyone's invited to it. We would have things like face painting, we'd have a DJ, we'd have the council there, we'd have the stage set up, so there's costs in terms of staffing. That would be the more expensive event. Christmas with the Cop would basically just be, as I said, gifts, and we would make it as large or small as we chose to. We typically want to keep the gifts to about $100 per child, which is still a pretty nice Christmas. It's just basically going to be toys, things like that, and then we'd have a catered breakfast where law enforcement would be invited, the council would be invited, families of the children would be invited, and we would just take photos to make it an opportunity to promote the city and law enforcement, give an opportunity to bond with the children.
Okay. So because we allocated in the budget, does not necessarily mean that we're approving both these events. It's just an event that we do, they're allocated.
This would be approving the money for those events if you choose to have.
I would say because of the timing, if you approve this, it would be something we would pursue then, because we need to start planning for it and organizing it.
Yeah, we've begun planning for both partially, but again, if without approval, we would just cancel them.
And I'm okay with National Night Out. I'm not as convinced with the Christmas with the Cop for some reason. But go ahead.
So we can start looking into sponsors for that. Mr. Estes will be looking for sponsors for you.
Potentially. In fact, that would be another way to do it. We could get sponsors from businesses, local businesses. They could then invite them to the breakfast as well, potentially have no cost to the city.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds even better. Okay, let's see. Another one I had a question about is the aerial video drone for photography. I know it's $2,000, and it's not a lot, but I'm just wondering what's the justification for the
Mr. Mayor,
drone?
Yeah, I'll address that. That is a request that initiated out of the telecom department because they could use it, like say, for the parade and other events. But the reality in looking at this product is that it could be used by a number of departments. So if approved, I would suggest it be in the administrative department because planning could use it for their work in the field. MSD could certainly use it, and as well as telecom. So.
We're planning not to spy on people in their backyard.
No, but if they need to get like a view of a lot or something, or just a layout of a yeah. So that's a question too. Do we want it? If we want that, then those are the kind of uses that could be done. But it initiated because of being a tool for the video department only.
Yeah, you just have to develop a policy on use.
Yeah, and we could work with the city attorney on that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that would be
it's certainly something we could
concern.
delay, defer on. It's not a big item, but it's a question: do we really need it at this time?
Okay. Okay. All right, we can develop a policy on it and talk about it. There you go. Let's see. I think that's all I had. Oh, I think I have one more. Oh, that was a crossing guard again. Okay, that's all I had. Does anyone have any additional?
I did. It was with regards to the reserves. I think throughout our history, I think that's one of the things that we've been especially proud of is tooting that we've had 100% reserve. So I am of the, I do believe that we should try and build it up to that. And I think it would be nice maybe to look at it in increments of 5 years. And reach a certain percentage until we hit that goal. And that would allow for us to kind of foresee, in the near future what has been going on. So I do think we need to develop.
If I could just
I'm
interrupt
okay
for a
with
second,
that, but-
that's not on the agenda, so we can't really talk about that since we've already had a few people give their opinion on it. What we need to do is ask the finance director to bring it back so that you guys can have a full conversation about revising the policy.
Or if there's no action, it stays at 100%.
Right.
Okay, there's no action.
Oh, okay. Then we're good.
That makes it easy.
Then you take all
If that's the desire.
Already?
It is.
Then you take all those comments back.
But
Well, no, I mean, it's just reflecting what I believe has been existing policy.
it is. And as you've seen, the finance director has dug in, and we now have a pretty good accounting of where we are today
Yeah.
with our
And
actual unrestricted
Unless-
assets.
Unless we're changing that policy. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
think
what he
we-
said.
We don't
That's
need
nothing
to
to do.
agendize it.
That's correct.
Right, but if you, because Robert was about to say
What,
something
try and change it?
Yeah, that's
inconsistent with
exactly
you.
what, that's
And
exactly
so-
what the city manager said. That's the existing policy, so.
Right.
If there's no request to
No
come
action.
back, we'll leave it alone.
Yeah.
No, we're good.
You good? Okay, all right.
But if we're done.
Okay, so that's all the items I have, so, anybody else have any items? So what do we do with this item tonight? Do we receive?
I'd like to add a
file
few closing remarks about the
it?
budget.
Okay, yes, sir.
Thank you. Just a moment. I will make it quick, but it's an important process, and as you see this year, this has been quite different from past years. We've got a lot of detail up there. We're getting into a lot of accounts, looking at our revenues, looking at our expenditures. A couple of things I just want to point out, which are pretty much obvious, but we commented about recreation and senior services, and I can tell you there is no city anywhere where recreation funds itself. Recreation is a service we provide to our community, which you have done really in a very exemplary fashion for many, many years. We discussed the drone matter, the reserve policy. Again, I've always thought, I know when I looked at this job 8 years ago, I thought that was an outstanding policy you had in place. So if we don't give us any direction, we'll keep it at 100%. One of the big items that was up here tonight was the separation of community services and CSD, accounting for those two departments, because again, they have revenues now they're generating. Community services, community development, which Sean brought forward, fees that we never had before. And that's really a fantastic thing that we have done. We're trying to recoup the actual costs so that the general taxpayer is not paying for specialized services. But by breaking those out, we're not doing this to look at and find ways to cut budgets later on. It's really to track our operations, to see what we're doing. And as Marla talked about, rolling in all the support services and costs, because that really contributes to what these real fees should be down the road. So this is going to help us have a much more accurate picture for our fees in the future. So I wanted you to know that really this is not about looking at making cuts anywhere. I don't want anyone to feel threatened by this. And the crossing guards continues to be an issue, another 16,000, and so that's something we will have to revisit and keep an eye on. And the big thing, Measure L. That was a fantastic thing that the council did, that the residents approved. But as you can see, based on just a couple of items in our budget, over $500,000 is being taken away already. And in the future, the sheriff's contract is not going to go away. We're not going to see reductions there. And the employee costs are not going down. So those are things that we need to keep an eye on so that we're not in a financial bind in the near future.
Yep.
With that, I really want to thank the entire team. I want to thank Marla for digging in on the budget and her staff, Wayne, for pulling this budget together this year. And again, every single department head who worked with Marla to scrutinize their own budgets so that you can see a really, I think, very responsible budget. There are increases, but these increases are things that we need to do. And a number of these increases are one time in the coming year, like the 60th anniversary. It's a big deal, 60 years. We've got some plans for Angel Tree and some activities. And, it's a good budget. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the council for considering it. If you give us some direction, we'll amend this for the next meeting. Otherwise, we'll bring it back as proposed, and we'll go from there.
Okay, can we give the direction tonight?
Yes.
Give that, okay.
No, it was just a question. So since we're going to be reviewing this quarterly, we can make adjustments as we see fit. So if, something goes out of whack, we can always look at, okay, maybe we, stall these certain items at, or events and whatnot. Okay, perfect.
Mr. Kern.
Yeah, in the big book, I had some questions about the vehicles.
Oh, good.
I think, I talked to Marla and Steve today, maybe we're going towards a fleet pricing, hopefully, because we have vehicles that had 64,000 miles on it, and December it's up. We have another one that's 49,000 miles on it, and it's up to December. It just seems to me a waste of
It's a
money.
very good question, Councilmember Kearney, and as you all know, we've been looking at putting in a CNG station at the Public Works Yard in excess of $600,000. We have put the hold on that. In fact, I doubt we're going to build that. Vehicles are changing from CNG to electric, and gas is even more efficient in many ways for city operations. The vehicles you talked about are CNG trucks. Because of our city, we put very few miles on our cars, and so these tanks are expiring well before the vehicle has met its useful life. So we're really not having any efficiencies here. So we are looking at getting away from that. We are looking at the fleet services. We've had a couple of vendors come in and say, we can provide you new cars on a lease basis program, and you'll save money every year. Well, Marla and her staff are analyzing some of these proposals, because if it really does produce a savings, then we should look at leases. I personally don't like leases, but if it really produces a savings every year, then we need to consider that for the revenue, for our budget. So it's in the budget right now. It doesn't mean we're going to do it, but it is something we are looking at. And these vehicles, unfortunately, have met we cannot run them after the tanks expire.
Yeah.
And to
I know.
convert them would cost more than buying a new car. So it's really a bad situation.
We've talked about that in the past.
Yeah.
Time to get away from them.
That's good.
Okay.
Okay, so what is the pleasure of this body concerning the budget? I'm all for it.
I'm all for it, so I'll make
Let's
a
go
recommendation
for
we
it.
go.
Yeah, we have to vote on it, right? So we have to get in direction. Right?
Well, we'll bring this back to you at the next
report.
meeting. Tonight is just to give us some direction on what you heard. If you want us to make any changes, we'll do so and bring those changes back. Otherwise, we'll bring back what you were presented with tonight.
Right, bring back the presented budget. Is the consensus?
Yeah.
Good.
Just review.
Yeah, that's the consensus, yeah.
I heard the word consent. We actually did that in the past. We brought the budget back on consent
Yeah.
calendar.
Okay, that's consensus. All right, very good. Okay, so we're now on item number 16. Items from the council members and the mayor. Let's start with Mr. Reed.
Oh, I get to lead this through, huh?
Anything you want to share?
Okay. Yeah, so I did attend our Memorial Day commemoration. That was very well put together. Much appreciated with it. And I also attended PS Arts at Lusinger this past weekend. It was good to see what the kids are doing in arts and crafts and, cheer and all that stuff. It was very good. They had a lot of information to put out and a lot of things to display for us. So had a good time. That's all I have.
Okay.
My turn?
Mr. Patrick?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
The mayor and I attended the Fit for Gold for our two Lawndale students. I also attended the PS Arts, or Take Part PS Arts performance with Council Member Reed and Councilwoman Suarez. I attended the Lawndale Elementary School Classified Workers Banquet, where they were honoring a custodian across the street. He is now Vice President of all schools in all of California. I also attended Memorial Day ceremony. I gave a little speech there, and I made air, and I omitted a whole bunch of people. So my air was in the Battle of Africa. It wasn't in South Africa, it was North Africa. And then I forgot to mention the whole Pacific Theater, where we had Bataan, Corregidor, the fighting in the jungles of the Philippines, Wake Island, the Battle of Midway, and close to home, we have Pearl Harbor, USS Arizona sitting at the bottom of Pearl Harbor with men that never saw daylight again. So I want to apologize for the people I offended. I didn't mean anything by it, and God bless you all. And with that, I turn it over to my
Thank you,
council.
sir. Councilwoman Suarez.
I too attended the Memorial Day service that the city puts on. Thank you to everybody that attended. Thank you to the staff, and most importantly, thank you to those I gave the ultimate prize. I also attended the Take Part Festival. It was hosted at Lusinger High School, and it featured a bunch of the South Bay students and their artwork and musicians, and a really, really talented group of individuals that we have there. And then I also attended the Centinela Youth Services Board of Directors meeting. And just to update, we currently are expanding the board to kind of include individuals that have expertise in different fields so that we can bring a bigger and better vision to our students that we're currently serving. And with that, I'll pass it along.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Osborne.
No report.
Okay, thank you, sir. That was fast. I too attended the Memorial Day event tribute. I have to say the staff did a great job putting that together. Thank you, Mike Estes, and your team did a wonderful job putting that tribute together. And for all those who participated, it was nice weather. That was great. I also attended the City of Hawthorne's Memorial Day event that was held subsequent to ours. And I also attend the Fit for Gold program as well, which was conducted by the South Bay Workforce Investment Board for all of our young folks, where we had young folks from Lawndale who was being honored as well. And I think that's all I have to report today. Yeah, that's all I have to report today. I do have to announce we do have a couple of closed sessions, 3 in particular, that we will go under before we adjourn. And I'm going to ask the city attorney to give the provisions of the closed session.
The city council will meet in closed session for 3 items. The first is labor negotiations regarding negotiations with the union. The second is a public employee performance evaluation and compensation evaluation for the city attorney. And the third is to discuss anticipated litigation regarding whether to initiate 3 cases. Thank you.
Okay, we'll stand in recess to closed session. Okay, we have returned from closed session. I'm going to ask the city attorney to give the report of the 3 closed sessions.
The city council met in closed session on 3 items. The first, to confer with its labor negotiator. The council was updated. There's no reportable action. On the second, the public employee performance evaluation and compensation. Again, the council was updated. No reportable action. On the third, regarding anticipated litigation, the council unanimously authorized litigation against the owners of 3 properties located at the first one, 4533 West 160th, the second one, 4136 West 169th, and the third one, 4541 and 4543 West 161st. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that report. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Lawndale City Council will be held at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, June the 17th in these council chambers. It is now 9:28 and we are adjourned.